Gerard. Gerard asked me, how many years ago now?
15.
15 years ago, if I would mind if he started up a Facebook group. And I've often said no to nearly everything that was to do with Dale because I wasn't healed. I hadn't got over the trauma of Dale's death and finding Dale. And I did say yes to Gerard because this man is a very kind and caring and considerate person, and I said yes to him. And for the longest time, I never put a comment. I was part of the group, but I never put a comment. I never put any posts or anything in there until 10 years ago I decided to get some healing work that I needed to get through the trauma and my drinking behaviour. So 10 years ago I stopped drinking and my life has just flourished ever since. So I finally found the time to start making comments and putting photos up and really embracing Dale and all the great things he did. So thank you very much for starting this in celebration of Dale's life. I really appreciate it. The other person is Terry. Terry has stood past me through thick and thin. Over the years, he's called me. I haven't answered the phone many times because sometimes I just can't speak. And Terry's used to me not answering his calls over the years, probably got a little bit better.
Yes, he's better now.
Now, but Terry's always rang Mum. He always, over the years, he's remembered all our birthdays, Christmas celebrations. So he's always reached out and made that kind call to us over the years. So he's been not just a workmate, but he's also been a very good carer for me, looking after me all these years. So thank you very much. And there's a few people here that have been with me for most of my adult life. Trudy and her family, and my cousin Michelle has obviously been with me all of my life. And to all the other people that have come along who've been supporting Dale in this group for over all these years, thank you so very, very much. It means the world to me that Dale can be remembered in such a beautiful way. Coming to Dale's gravesite where Dad now rests as well has always been a difficult journey for me. It was probably 20 years before I could find the power to come down here and even visit Dale, and it's always as you can imagine, it's always a bit of a tearjerker. But over the years, Dale and I certainly had some fun when we were little kids living up in New Minor. Dale used to call me Pest. I have no idea why. I'm not a pest, but it stuck, and he called me Pest to the day he passed. So it was always Pest, and thankfully now I know a bit about mindset that I never actually took that on board for anything else but an endearing term all those years. And we used to ride little mini bikes all around Umina, being chased by police down at Dude Ranch down the back of Umina there. Michelle would remember those days too. And then we did mini bike racing. Dale moved up to I think he had a Honda 75, which I then got. And I had the Pee-wee 75, the little Kawasaki. We used to do little road races around the area. And then we moved to Duralong, and things changed once we had some land of our own, where then Dad put a speedway track in for Robbie McGregor, who was a young guy that used to come and practice speedway at the back of our property. And because we used to have citrus there, Dad turf mowed all those down. We weren't farmers. And we were known amongst the dairy farmers as those southern people, those Sydney people, for a very long time. And so Dad then built a speedway track for Robbie McGregor to come and practice his speedway on. And Dad and him had become very good friends. And then lo and behold, Dale got a little dirt ramp happening and started jumping Mum's Tirana, which I also flogged on that, broke all the clutch plates on that speedway, racing her Tirana, automatic Tirana around that track. We were a bit of rebels as little kids. And then from there, of course, Dale Buggins, as we were celebrating him today, started. So quite a journey. We always had bikes as kids. We grew up around bikes. We had push bikes. We used to do jumps out the front of the house at Ocean Beach Road. Were you ever part of those? Were you ever one of the crash dummies for that? Laying on the thing while the boys jumped over the top of us as kids? And then we started the touring, and Dale became quite famous in Australia first. We're doing all the local shows. I don't know how many shows we would have done. I'd love to get a list of those actually. There's quite a lot. And then somebody posted that Dale did a show in Cairns, and I'm like, and I did the high wire in Cairns. I'm like, oh, did we? I have, after the bit of trauma, my memory is pretty shot around a lot of the events at that time, so I just blocked everything out and pretty much ran away and started drinking with my trauma medication. But So yeah, life's been a bit of a journey, but those heady days of going up to the clock tower at Sydney Showgrounds, it's
178 feet.
178 feet, and we went right up to the clock. And we were just talking in the car park over here about safety, and Dad would have got done for child safety because the safety back then was 40 something years ago was minimal. And we had the barest of bare, and I remember my little cable this big, which went up through the clock tower and down to the concrete block at the bottom of the clock tower. So it's quite a feat of technology and getting that to work year after year. So yeah, it was a lot of homework at home on the property where we'd set all the things up and practice at home through lots of laughter and tears and probably no end of arguments, as families do. But we certainly looked out for each other, and the passing of Dale that day in a motel room, people say to me at times, you know, you must have known. I had no idea. You know, I was 16, I had no idea. 16 coming into 17, I was 17 at the time. And yeah, I had no idea that he was so mentally compromised or so unhappy in his life. Since that time, I was just telling Michelle last night, I had two girls that were friends of Dale's. They weren't girlfriends, boyfriends in that pure sense, but they hung out with Dale quite a bit. And they both felt compelled to ring me around the same time earlier this year, and they both said almost the same words. And I'm not always spiritual, but I believe there's something higher than us on this planet. And they both said something similar to me, and that was, I've been getting like messages that I have to call you. I've had this really strong feeling like, Chantell, I have to connect to you and tell you what happened. I'm like, okay, I'll hold on to the bench top here. And they both said that to me. They both said those similar words. I've had this really strong pull to call you. And they both said, you know, Dale used to come and visit quite often. And the last time I saw him, these are two different, they're not friends, they're two separate girls. And they said he actually laid on the ground and cried and said he couldn't do it anymore. And that's the first I'd ever heard of that. And to be in that state with your mental health and nobody know, the loved ones that know you to not know that. Many of you may know that I now advocate for suicide prevention, mental health. I help people with depression, addictions, you know, pretty much the life I went through and the life of Dale. And if I can help anybody through the work that I do now to live a good life, to walk away from the depression and that pain. When those ladies told me that, well, I've got them now. It sent chills through me that, how do we see that? How do we see that if people are not telling us that? So, you know, we've been talking about a charity that we wanted to work, and Gerard sent me a link to Gus Warren.
Yeah, the Gotcha for Life.
Gotcha for Life. And he made the chat on that, and I just said to Gerard, he's the man. He said, we've been doing prevention for far too long. We've been doing awareness for even longer, but it's time to act. And they're powerful words. You know, it's time to act now. And really, sorry, I'm going to shiver a moment, because it is time to act. When you feel that somebody's not right, don't ask them if they're okay. Ask them what's going on for you, and get into a conversation, because are you okay is a great day, but they have now realised there's a fair big gap in going, hey, you okay? And then you walk on, because we don't know how to have that conversation. You can go, I've done the suicide medical first aid where you learn how to speak to people if you've got people around you that you feel are compromised. Go and do a suicide or a first aid course around mental health. It's just like doing your first aiders course in 2 days. And you'll find out that it's not about, are you okay? It's like, do you have a plan? Have you tried before? You need to get in there and start asking and acting and getting the words from them, because when somebody hears you and when you're in that state, they're likely to say, yeah, I've made a plan. And you start a conversation that could change somebody's life or future. So if I could leave you with that, and thank you, and then again, thank you all for the love that you've shared with Dale all these years and held him in your heart. I'm so grateful for each and every one of you and the other fans that are on the group. Probably should have done a little live for the group. We could do that at Naviac maybe.
Yeah.
Or if we weren't already going to do that.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, so it goes straight to the group maybe.
Yeah.
Sorry, my brain works random ways sometimes. So if anyone had any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. If I can't answer them, I'll simply say, sorry, I can't answer that. I'll answer it in private maybe. But yeah, any questions anyone has? Okay. I'm around all day anyway, so if you do want to have a yarn, if you need to talk to me about anything that's private, please take me aside. I'm happy to have a yarn to you about any healthcare you may wish to talk to me about, or I'm all over Facebook, so please send me a message and I'll pick the phone up to you if you do need any chats.